Greetings world. We are anonymous. We are anonymous. We are not forgive. We do not forget. Expect us.
Greetings world. We are anonymous. This is our third video about the WikiLeaks fakery. As you probably know, WikiLeaks was originally set up by the Rothschilds to harm the Swiss bank Julius Baer. This is when the psyop started. It's all about money. Please check our previous videos. Is the real Julian Assange dead? Why should WikiLeaks and Julian Assange get so much publicity? Why are MSM reporting about it? Why do they allow WikiLeaks? Why did the UN pardon him while others were prosecuted and jailed? Because these are controlled leaks covering special interests. WikiLeaks is a puppet. Example: Anonymous is the leading hacktivist movement. Anonymous's Operation Icarus 2016 had experiences last year when they attacked the banks. No MSM coverage at all. Not even HackRed covered it. Keep in mind that a bank loses approximately 100k USD per hour when their website is down. Icarus was trending, but no coverage from mainstream media. They attacked even central banks. We have to update you listeners worldwide. WikiLeaks is CIA. It belongs to the CIA. Always has. Julian Assange is just the front man. All will be revealed as you read this report. With one tweet, WikiLeaks have confirmed Julian Assange was taken by the CIA. We have the tweet and more further in this article. WikiLeaks sent out an SOS for help on the 14th October. We have all those tweets with the hidden message as well. Now WikiLeaks is fully compromised by the CIA. All accounts associated with WikiLeaks are now in control by the CIA. Find the links at the end of this video and in the description. Don't be fooled. They play with you. We are anonymous, we are legion, we don't forgive, we don't forget. Expect us. I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. Frank Herbertune. People fear what they cannot see, what they do not know. Fear can also be used against the innocent, the vulnerable, and the world. Fear is used against victims of a violent crime, or sexual abuse, domestic abuse, against the elderly, and no more so that those who are the most vulnerable. For decades, governments have been using fear against the world's population. They have in the past and present also used the media to manipulate, lie to the world, and instill fear worldwide. With the age of the internet and technology, government organizations, the elite, the criminal underbellies of our society, have new ways to instill fear, and also use that fear as a tool for blackmail. WikiLeaks is one such tool of deception. The brainchild of Julian Assange and the Rothschilds is a tool of terrorism and fear for the CIA and for the Rothschild shadow government, to manipulate not only the financial market around the world, but to also manipulate world trade, politics, and instill fear and blackmail. This video documentary is from 2010-2011, uploaded to anonymous activists by one of our activists, Alexandria, who has the entire collection of documentaries made about WikiLeaks and Assange. This video has now been shared to dozens of anonymous YouTube channels since the 28th December 2016 and shared with millions around the world. Last year, Alexandria was given by ex-Black Ops documents on the secret project of the U.S. governor, called Project Pegasus, what it does, and what it controls. Alexandria gave this data to our non-activists, and a video has been made by all non YouTube channels to expose this to the world. Just after Alex released this on her own social media pages, she received death threats, and threats from accounts which were clearly CIA. The documentary exposes the lies of Julian Assange of WikiLeaks. How Bradley Manning was set up to take the fall. Assange knew this and he doesn't give a shit. Manning was not the source of the leaks. This has been exposed by anonymous activists worldwide. WikiLeaks and Assange equals CIA were the source of the war leaks, and DiploLeaks then staff and co-editors also exposed Julian Assange as a dictator, out of control, and a liar. Assange was also exposed in the video making threats to people. Julian Assange, his own words. He did not care that he has blood on his hands putting innocent children, entire families' lives in danger, or the life of Manning on the line. His words are in this video. The rape in Sweden exposed in this video. Julian Assange actually raped 3 women, then lied about it to the entire world. Then, now former WikiLeaks staff, and WikiLeaks co-coordinators also exposed this. Anonymous human rights organization have also exposed this in 2016 with evidence collected. Julian Assange and WikiLeaks, as whores, used and manipulated the media to keep up their lies to the world. We have to make sure we screenshot and record for historical reference everything. WikiLeaks equals CIA are cleaning house, and they are having evidence and data removed from not only their website, but their Twitter accounts and the internet completely. Click on any of our posters for full-size views. WikiLeaks publishing unverified documents exposed, and in 2017 WikiLeaks are still lying about this. Julian Assange's media statement says he did not verify documents. This has also been confirmed by former WikiLeaks staff and co-editors and coordinators of WikiLeaks. Assange was recruited by the CIA after he was arrested for 25 counts of hacking in Australia. One of the counts was hacking NASA and putting the virus in our system, which could have cost the lives of the ground staff. Assange was 19 and never saw any jail time. Anyone else would have gone to jail. We have seen this happen. This was the pivot point when Assange became the puppet for the CIA. The CIA are well known for recruiting the best hackers in the world, even 16-year-olds. The CIA has had a strong hold on Australia since 1975, when the government of the day sold out Australia to the USA shadow government. Australia basically became under ownership of the USA back in 1975. Just this week in Australia, the PM of Australia, the Turnbull, U.S. shadow government of Soros announced his intention to increase the strong A in Australia. Why? When in the USA President Donald Trump is doing the opposite and having the CIA arrested, including in Australia. The Australian Turnbull, shadow governor of Soros, wants to make Australia a police state. You as a citizen of Australia will have zero rights. It will be enemy, even more than what there is now. Internal turmoil now. It is not just governments that denounce him. Some of his own comrades are abandoning him for what they see as erratic and imperious behavior, and a nearly delusional grandeur unmatched by an awareness that the digital secrets he reveals can have a price in flesh and blood. Several WikiLeaks colleagues say he alone decided to release the Afghan documents without removing the names of Afghan intelligence sources for NATO troops. We were very upset with that, and with the way he spoke about it afterwards, said Birgitte Jonsdottir, a core WikiLeaks volunteer and a member of Iceland's parliament. If he could just focus on the important thing he does, it would be better. Effectively, as Mr. Assange pursues his fugitive's life, his leadership is enforced over the internet. Even remotely, his style is imperious. In an online exchange with one volunteer, a transcript of which was obtained by the New York Times. He warned that WikiLeaks would disintegrate without him. "We've been in a unity or death situation for a few months now," he said. When Herbert Snorrason, a 25-year-old political activist in Iceland, questioned Mr. Assange's judgment over a number of issues in an online exchange last month, Mr. Assange was uncompromising. "I don't like your tone," he said, according to a transcript. "If it continues, you're out." In an interview about the exchange, Morrison's conclusion was stark. "He is not in his right mind," he said. In London, Mr. Assange was dismissive of all those who have criticized him. "These are not consequential people," he said. "About a dozen disillusioned volunteers have left recently," said Smári McCarthy, an Icelandic volunteer who has distanced himself in the recent turmoil. In late summer, Mr. Assange suspended Tom Scheibberg, a German who had been the WikiLeaks and editor under the pseudonym Daniel Schmidt, accusing him of unspecified, bad behavior, and refuses to answer to anyone but himself. Many more activists, Mr. McCarthy said, are likely to follow. But now, WikiLeaks has been met with new doubts. Amnesty International and Reporters Without Borders have joined the Pentagon in criticizing the organization for risking people's lives by publishing war logs identifying Afghans working for the Americans or acting as informers. But if Mr. Assange is sustained by his sense of mission, faith is fading among his fellow conspirators. His mood was caught vividly in an exchange with their senior WikiLeaks figure. In an encrypted online chat, a transcript of which was passed to the Times, Mr. Assange was dismissive of his colleagues. He described them as a confederacy of fools, and asked his interlocutor, "Am I dealing with a complete retard?" In London, Mr. Assange was angered when asked about the rifts. He responded testily to questions about WikiLeaks' opaque finances, private Manning's fate and WikiLeaks' apparent lack of accountability to anybody but himself, calling the questions cretinous, facile, and reminiscent of kindergarten. Mr. Assange had been equivocal about Private Manning, talking in late summer as though the soldier was unavoidable collateral damage, much like the Afghans named as informers in the secret Pentagon documents. Source NE. "We have written to President Donald Trump, and also made this publicly known on his social media accounts. Bradley Chelsea Manning was not the source of the Iraq War and diplomatic cables leaks. Assange and WikiLeaks were, and Manning was set up for this. We have given the evidence to President Trump and have asked for Manning to be released. WikiLeaks in 2017 are still in the media with their psyop to the entire world with Manning. For 2 years Assange has been saying he will turn himself in so Manning can be released. Well, that would be a little hard to do since the real Assange was taken out of the picture back in 2011, and since only fake Assanges, which has been more than proven. Assange's fake WikiLeaks equals CIA. If you want to help Manning, then all of you turn yourselves in and stop bullshitting and lying to the world. Your psyop has been exposed by Anonymous worldwide." It was the fake Assange who was taken from the Ecuador UK Embassy October 2016. Fake JA sending out secret messages he wanted out. The psyop even went so far as to put a fucking fake stuffed cat in the window of the embassy. And it is the fake CIA-controlled media who are going along with WikiLeaks equals CIS and psyop to the world. It has already been explained in great detail the purpose of WikiLeaks and pre-selected leaks and doctored documents, to what purpose this was done in a series of videos by anonymous human rights activists. You can view those videos here in the WikiLeaks PSYOP Part 1 and Part 2. In the video above, WikiLeaks are named by the US government as a terrorism one, committing thousands of acts of treason, espionage, and felonies. It is in the video people, exposed to the entire world. By their own admissions, WikiLeaks in 2016 had committed over 10 million felonies, and because they are CIA are given a license to continue their lies and reign of terrorism on the world. We draw reference to this because, in September 2016, the former President Obama announced WikiLeaks' entire organization was now classed as a terrorism organization, wanted dead or alive. And here we are in 2017, and WikiLeaks are still posting their BS lies to the entire world. They are still a governor con job for the CIA, out of control. Still blackmailing governments. Still blackmailing corporations. Still post unverified leaks to the world. The U.S. governor on the 21st October 2016 out of the bank accounts of WikiLeaks. All the people who leaked documents to WikiLeaks site, which only counts to 4 people, all human rights activists for Anonymous went to jail and 1 died. Tracked through WikiLeaks and arrested. The Stratfor Leaks 2012-2013 were Anonymous activists. Bradley Manning number 5 in 2010, but he was not the source of any leaks. He was set up by Assange, and WikiLeaks equals CIA to take the fall for what they did. In 2014, WikiLeaks equals CIA published the IP addresses, phone numbers of anonymous human rights activists, putting their entire families in danger, as payback for exposing the lies of their CIA-based operation, Project Pegasus. The Russian and French governor know all about Project Pegasus and what it does. They are 2 countries who conducted an international intelligence investigation and made a full report about this unit. WikiLeaks is banned in Russia and China. And this video opens your eyes to why WikiLeaks website was used to entrap human rights activists. WikiLeaks are blacklisted worldwide. You cannot trust one word what is published on their site. We have seen the lies they have been tweeting to the world right up until this very day in 2017. Hell people, the video documentary above. Assange's own words from 2010 and his words from 2008 showed he and WikiLeaks lied to the entire world. If anyone did a fraction of what Assange and WikiLeaks have done, they would be in a dark pit in hell with Bradley Manning or dead. And we are talking a fraction here, people. We wanted to add an update February 7, 2017. WikiLeaks have been found going to other activists' websites and stealing their material and posting as their own data. Then went to the FBI vault and took the FBI material on Hillary Clinton, the FBI released, and then put it on their own Twitter page and website and told the world it was their discovery. When it was not. We have the FBI vault material on our Facebook page and have done since the FBI released it to the world. WikiLeaks are also going to this website called the CIA Black Vault and taking documents that have already been declassified by the CIA and released to the public. So people beware of the massive psyop WikiLeaks is still running. And it's going to get worse. The CIA are taking over YouTube and Google. Look what happened to Drake, and he has never published ever, to WikiLeaks, nor has Snowden or Gotchcipher. These 3 activists have paid a huge price for setting truth free the world for good, not to blackmail with. Article link here. While WikiLeaks' reign of terrorism has been a tool for the Rothschilds, the shadow governor until this very day, and have not been arrested still, not even after being classed by the U.S. governor as wanted for being a terrorism organization. WikiLeaks have never once exposed the Rothschilds' involvement in the Iraq War, the killing of innocent children, the decimation and destruction of an entire country at the hands of the Rothschilds, and their company setup called Genie Energy. But we have more on this, which is going into a new article. We had previously written about the Iraq War exposing the lies of governor, and the scum and evil of this planet, killing for greed. Article here.
Okay, Julian Assange, the head of WikiLeaks, okay? Julian Assange was only the head. He was the puppet for WikiLeaks, alright? there's a lot of countries involved in everything. I heard Sharon say that, you know, the UN had pardoned him and said that, you know, they couldn't try him and everything. I got news for you folks. Over 2 years ago, they set this up through the UN and told Julian Assange he could have his freedom, you know, that he could have his freedom, but he had to do this, expose the United States corporation. And what, you know, just like, you know, Osama bin Laden did not die. He's living in the Bahamas. He gets $200,000 a month from the CIA. This is what they're going to do with Julian Assange. They're going to send him over to some of them Bahama Islands over there, and he's going to get a paycheck because he's done his job. That's exactly what's going to happen. But he wasn't supposed to get pardoned until January of 2017. So the timelines have either speeded up, so our timelines speeded up and everything exposed early. So I just thought I'd let you in on that. I about fell out whenever I had that, and they said, well, you know, Julian Assange, you know, the UN said that he's, you know, that they have no evidence and everything against him. And I'm like, oh, crap, they won't do this until, you know, January of 2017. But I guess with everything being sped up in the timelines and everything, you know, they, everything's coming early, so.
Hello world, we are anonymous, guardians of truth. We are worldwide. Truth. It is like poetry, or hearing that psychopaths are running the world. No one wants to hear it. The question now is, can you handle the truth?
You start off liking and trusting him, and then suddenly this kind of monster appears from behind the scenes. Where on earth did that come from? You suddenly discover this extraordinarily dishonest man. I don't know that I've ever met a human being as dishonest as Julian.
You know, when my phone rings there, and it's my colleague Nick Davis, and he says, you'll never guess, Julian's gone to Sweden and been arrested for rape.
On 10, I woke up to find an email from an American journalist with a link to this Swedish newspaper Expressen. Front page claims that Julian is charged with sexually assaulting 2 women. Stockholm with Julian, and I had got to know the WikiLeaks coordinator there, a very nice Swedish journalist called Donald Bostrom. So I called Donald, and I went through to Donald and said, what's going on here? And he said, my friend, I'm sorry to tell you, it's true.
And it was an extraordinary story. Julian had upset these 2 women by his incontinent sexual behaviour, which had involved, it would appear, jumping on them and not using a condom, even though they very much wanted him to. After he had had sex with these 2 women in rapid sequence and had misconducted himself with both of them, they had got together, and one of the things they wanted him to have an AIDS test. And Julian's friend, this man Donald Bostrom, was sort of intermediary, and he told us, he said, I was on the phone all the time between these women and Julian, you know, and these women are saying, oh, I'm not going to do that. And they are saying, oh, well, if you don't, we're going to go to the police. And by the time he's agreed this, it's 5:10 on a Friday in Stockholm, and apparently you can't find a clinic that's open at that time in Stockholm. So he didn't have the AIDS test. So the women made good their threat and went to the police.
I heard about it while I was on a holiday. I thought, that's just not possible. You know, it was bad. However we try to approach this internally, it boiled down to the fact that, well, there was nothing to discuss, you know.
So what do you mean? Julian didn't want to discuss it?
No, not at all.
Assange talks to the police once and then leaves Sweden, claiming this isn't just a rape inquiry, but something more sinister.
Julian Assange says his own country's intelligence service warned him of a dirty tricks campaign shortly before he was the subject of a rape allegation. Assange says all the allegations against him are untrue.
That's what he told everybody, that he had been warned about a CIA, some kind of a subversive CIA attack or something like this. I mean, that was the initial response that's been printed all over the world. And that's what actually lots of people started to believe, you know.
Mr. Assange says the allegations against him are politically motivated. Swedish prosecutors want to question him about 3 allegations of sexual assault and 1 of rape.
No, I said, well, whatever the cause is, you know, if that's the accusation, then we'll have to organizationally work with that, and that might maybe mean that you go step back for a bit.
Jemima Khan said she supports him despite not knowing him.
I'm here because I believe this is about the principle of the universal right of freedom of information.
To see Julian tweeting and giving mainstream media comment, which clearly suggested that this was some kind of American dirty trick, was very distressing, because the guy is supposed to stand for truth. And that wasn't true. I am not saying that I know that Julian is guilty of a crime. I don't know the truth about that. I'm saying that Julian misled the world when he claimed or hinted that there was some kind of conspiracy by the Americans behind it.
Once back in London, he acts swiftly to deal with those inside WikiLeaks critical of his leadership. He suspends Daniel Domscheit-Berg for disloyalty, insubordination, and destabilization in a time of crisis.
Yes, it's dangerous. That's what's dangerous in any organization where there's one person that's not answering to anybody. That's not what any organization should be like. Again, that's one of these premises that WikiLeaks came from.
The deal was that we wouldn't bring TV in until the last moment. So we did that precisely.
He said, this was always part of our agreement. Now, if he'd said that to you or somebody else, it would have been a lie, but he might have had some chance of being believed. But he was saying it to me. I'm the guy who made the agreement with him. I'd had multiple conversations about this agreement. He made it up. But I thought what was interesting was, I think he believes the things that he invents. So when he says that to me, I think at that moment he believes it, which makes it worth saying. And it's the same when, for example, he's talking about the 2 women in Sweden and tries to pretend that this is all dirty tricks by the Pentagon. I think he believes it. I think most people who get close to him go through this process. You start off liking and trusting him, and then suddenly this kind of monster appears from behind the scenes. Where on earth did that come from? You suddenly discover this extraordinarily dishonest man. I don't know that I've ever met a human being as dishonest as Julian.
But just a day later, the New York Times publishes a front-page profile of Julian. He's described as increasingly dictatorial, erratic, and intolerant of dissent. It claims that the Swedish trial is having a terrible effect on morale inside WikiLeaks.
I think all of my exchanges with Julian Assange have consisted of him complaining to me or haranguing me for things that the Times had done.
Julian insists that the New York Times are out. They will have no part in the last and most significant batch of documents from that initial leak. 250,000 secret reports from US ambassadors around the globe.
You know, we had learned early on that we were dealing with an unpredictable element. So I wasn't shocked to learn that he intended to exclude us.
He made it known that we hadn't played nicely, and the New York Times was not going to get to play in the big game, that is the diplomatic cables.
And then The Guardian came to our rescue.
I take a few decisions. which is that I am going to keep the New York Times in the loop on this, and I'm not going to betray our partners. And I give the New York Times a copy of my memory stick with these cables on. Julian bursts in, accompanied by his lawyer, Mark Stevens, and his other lawyer, Jennifer Robinson. So a troop of lawyers and Julian. And Julian starts shouting at the editor of The Guardian.
There followed then a kind of sort of 7 or 8 hour meeting, which included everything from, you know, blustering and aggression and bullying and tantrums.
The New York Times is the thing that makes him go crazy. Every time the subject of the New York Times comes up, he starts ranting again.
Late in the night, he said, well, the New York Times is out. I don't think we have an agreement with The Guardian, but we have an agreement with Spiegel. And I said, well, Julian, then you don't have an agreement with Spiegel, because we went a long way with The Guardian and the New York Times in the whole project. So he said, well, we don't have to have Spiegel, and he left the room.
He shakes my hand and he looks into my eyes like he's a sort of mafia don, and he says, be careful, like that. I thought, this is ridiculous. I'm being threatened by this person, you know? And I've never spoken to Julian since that day, actually. I was just so angry with him about it.
Instead of looking at the moon, we looked at the finger that was pointing at the moon. There were a series of terrible misjudgments by Julian. So first of all, the failure to properly redact the Afghan material was hugely damaging. I think, secondly, his becoming embroiled with the accusations of sexual misbehavior in Sweden was somewhat damaging. What was even more damaging was that he was clearly not telling the truth about it. WikiLeaks' moral and political authority flows from the fact of truth-telling, and you cannot do that and then also tell lies to the world. It doesn't work.
The Guardian from this morning.
If you look at the moral standing which Julian Assange had on that Sunday night when we published the Afghan war logs, it was potentially huge. And you look where he stands now, way, way down from the moral high ground. And that's not just a loss of moral authority, it's a loss of political impact, it's a loss. And insofar as there is this character Bradley Manning awaiting trial, it's a loss of all the potential benefit that might have gone in his direction.
Nation, Julian Assange announces he is planning to put out all the diplomatic cables, with nothing blacked out.
That's about the worst decision I'm aware of. You know, that's like, this shouldn't happen, because this is again where you are not a pro-whistleblowing organization, but you're just a mere anti-secrecy organization. And there's a big, big difference in between these two things.
And the difference is?
One is a responsible thing and the other one isn't.
It's like a Greek tragedy. You've seen a triumph turned into a disaster. And I mean, I don't doubt that The Guardian and the New York Times made mistakes along the way, but ultimately the triumph has become a disaster because of one man's personality flaws.
The Swedish prosecutor Ingrid Isgran flew all the way to the UK to take a video statement from Julian Assange on the 14th of November 2016. Keep in mind, people, it has been confirmed, even by WikiLeaks themselves, that Assange was taken from the embassy on the 16th of October 2016 by their own tweets they sent out and evidence since collected by Anonymous. We had since discovered through a collection of forensic evidence, WikiLeaks and Julian Assange are CIA. The real Julian Assange was taken out of the picture back in 2011. Since then only fakes to take his place. To keep up the charade, the CIA had Swedish prosecutor do her illusionists show to the world. The press were all gathered outside, none the wiser to what had gone down last month. She then emerges 7 hours later, with an hour for lunch, saying it was illegal to question Julian Assange at the embassy, so she couldn't take his statement. Actually people, that is a complete lie that she fabricated. It is not illegal. We did check with our own team of activists who are lawyers and QCs. A fact she did know, otherwise she would not have wasted the flight going to the Ecuador embassy in the UK in the first place. It was planned people, she had been alerted, and part of what went down, and she had to be part of and keep up the charade for the CIA in front of the media. Under law it is actually illegal in such a high-profile rape case to give a dubbed audio testimony. It would not wash in any courtroom. Video link up with lawyers present is the only way a testimony would be accepted. Don't forget people. Sweden have been trying to get Assange back to Sweden in person to give evidence, over backwards trying to make this happen. Now all of a sudden a dubbed audio version a week later, with no prosecutor present, is acceptable. Who the fuck are they trying to Only the dumb people and the zombie media who would utter lies and rubbish, considering Julian never ever gave a statement, a fact confirmed by the prosecutor. And Julian wasn't even in the embassy. All that has been confirmed even by WikiLeaks and all the intel gathered, the siege of the CIA taking Assange, putting him on a plane back to the USA. We now know, this was in fact a fake Assange. At the end of the day people, you can't charge man with rape. And somehow we can't see any of the fake Assanges taking the rap for this. It would just be another lie, another psyop and con job to the people of the world. In 2017 WikiLeaks, the fake Assanges, the hits of the oligarchy, are still lying to the world about this. WikiLeaks have been blacklisted worldwide for a reason. They are one great big government, CIA con job to the entire world.
Hello world, we are Anonymous. In this video Anonymous will show you the link with the Rothschilds and Julian Assange, and how he and WikiLeaks helped the world's largest banking family take down their rival. CIA have been using WikiLeaks to bring down governments and blackmail governments. That was the aim at only releasing certain material since 2014. It is political warfare and WikiLeaks are being used as puppets to leak documents to bring down governments. The US government is trying to destroy Putin. The WikiLeaks is a big and dangerous US intelligence con job which will likely be used to police the internet. February 17, 2011, Assange held a press conference at the Frontline Club where Rudolf Elmer, a former employee of Bank Julius Baer, gave Assange private files from the bank's Cayman Islands operation. Elmer said he wanted to expose mass tax evasion before he flies back to Switzerland to stand trial for stealing information from a bank. Although Elmer has not named the tax evaders, he claims the CD files contain information about 40 politicians, many business people, multinational conglomerates, and people who have made their living in the arts. Assange's press conference was actually a public threat to Bank Julius Baer. WikiLeaks first disclosed some of Elmer's Julius Baer material in 2008, naming 10 clients. At the time, Julius Baer sued and got a court injunction to effectively shut down WikiLeaks.org at its web host in California. Subsequently, the law firm Fox Rothschild represented WikiLeaks, got the injunction overturned, and got WikiLeaks.org back online. Immediately, WL commenced leaking more of Elmer's documents, which was damaging to Bank Julius Baer. Bank JB got a lot of negative publicity from its attempt to censor the internet. When JB lost the suit, their super elite clients became fearful of being exposed and prosecuted for tax evasion and money laundering. Julius Baer shares dropped 60% during the next 10 months. On December 4, 2008, the 52-year-old CEO of Julius Baer, Alex Widmer, was unexpectedly found dead. He was the most important person in private banking, said a Zurich-based trader. This is a setback for the bank. Julius Baer, a Swiss trading analyst said. Reports of the cause of death were contradictory and vague, and an autopsy was never released. The recent imprisonment of WikiLeaks' Julian Assange strains credibility. His arrest by Interpol, his incarceration under draconian conditions for breaking a condom are in themselves highly unlikely events, but the timing of his imprisonment with the release of classified U.S. cables and the campaign against WikiLeaks funding and website host bear the trademarks of a covert operation. Anonymous has uncovered many links between WikiLeaks and the international Rothschild network. A sister-in-law and second cousin of the Rothschilds posted bail for Julian Assange. The Economist, a Rothschild magazine, gave Assange its New Media Award in 2008. WikiLeaks used the law firm Fox Rothschild to overturn a judge's ruling to order a web host to shut down the WikiLeaks site. The Guardian and the New York Times, two of Assange's media partners, are linked to the Rothschilds. The owner of the mansion where Assange was eventually put under house arrest has links to Rothschilds. Assange's lawyer is also Rothschild's lawyer. U.S. Senator Joe Lieberman, who was ultimately responsible for making Assange the largest media personality of the decade, is a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, a Rothschild organization. The Rothschilds are an international family of bankers at the center of a web of wealthy families who control most of the countries through a worldwide network of privately owned central banks, masquerading as federal banks, major news chains, trusts, councils, etc. An unnamed source has put their monetary worth near 100 trillion, dwarfing the net worth of the likes of Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, Ted Turner etc. Socialite, heiress Jemima Khan, née Goldsmith, posted £20,000 30 White House and for the bail of WikiLeaks leader Julian Assange. She's genetically related to the Rothschilds, and she is a sister-in-law. Her father, the late James Goldsmith, British banker, publisher, is a cousin to the Rothschilds. James' grandfather Adolf Goldschmidt came to London as a multimillionaire in 1895 and changed the family name from the German Goldschmidt to the English Goldsmith. The Goldschmidts, like their neighbors and relatives the Rothschilds, had been prosperous merchant bankers in Frankfurt, Germany since the 16th century. Following the Rothschilds' centuries-old edict to interbreed, Jemima Khan's brother, Ben, wed Kate Rothschild in 2003, and recently her other brother, Zach, a new MP in British Parliament, had been having an affair with his brother's sister-in-law, Alice Rothschild, Kate's sister, up until he divorced his wife 4 days after he was elected MP. Zach and Alice are presently living together. Khan's brothers are marrying into Rothschild wealth. The Rothschilds began grooming Julian Assange in 2008, when WikiLeaks was awarded the Economist's New Media Award. The Economist is the voice of Britain's establishment, led by the British Rothschilds, which has, for example, on balance, supported Britain's involvement in the Iraq War. Sir Evelyn Robert Adrian de Rothschild was chairman of The Economist from 1972 to 1989. His wife Lynn Forrester de Rothschild currently sits on The Economist's board. The Rothschild family also has a large shareholder interest in The Economist. At first blush, it is incredulous that The Economist, the pinnacle of the establishment, would give their award to Assange, knowing full well that he was releasing classified government documents and being overly aware of the havoc this will create in the world. The Rothschilds' oft-stated goal, over the centuries, is for a one-world government, i.e., the New World Order. To this end they engineer conflict between nations, to create crises that will then be utilized to increase the power of international entities, the UN, World Bank, IMF, etc. For example, they, and other closely related families like the Schiffs, financed the Bolsheviks. In the past, the Rothschild empire have profited by bankrolling both sides of war. U.S. Senator Joe Lieberman is the Rothschilds' point man in America. During the last presidential election, he took his friend, Republican candidate John McCain, to Jacob Rothschild's house for a fundraiser for McCain. Lieberman is a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, a Rothschild cabal which is essentially the shadow government of the U.S. Lieberman's recent actions resulted in cutting off the money supply of WikiLeaks. PayPal, MasterCard, Visa, stopped accepting donations for WikiLeaks. Lieberman publicly took credit for censoring WikiLeaks' website by pressuring Amazon to stop hosting the website. The result was that anonymous hacktivists launched attacks on the websites of companies which had discontinued service to WikiLeaks. Lieberman's campaign against WikiLeaks had the effect of increasing the martyrdom and hence the popularity of Assange and WikiLeaks. Lieberman made Assange a star, nearly becoming Time magazine's Man of the Year. Julian Assange's lawyer is Mark Stevens of Finer Stevens Innocent, a major London elite law firm. They are the legal advisor to the Rothschilds' prestigious Waddesdon Trust. Assange's main media partner is The Guardian. The Guardian has been infiltrated by Rothschilds. The Guardian is controlled by Guardian Media Group, whose chairman is Paul Miners of P.M. Rothschild Limited and Sons Limited. Guardian Media Group is owned by Scott Trust, which became a limited private company in 2008, with all trustees becoming directors of the Scott Trust. Anthony Sauls was appointed as a trustee of Scott Trust in 2009. He is currently executive vice chairman of the investment bank Rothschild. The Guardian gave the U.S. cables to the current New York Times. Chairman of the NYT is Arthur Sulzberger Jr., a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. He is the son of Arthur Oakes Sulzberger and grandson of Arthur Hayes Sulzberger, who served as a trustee for the Rockefeller Foundation, in cahoots with Rothschilds for One World Government. After a time in a real prison, Assange was imprisoned in a countryside mansion at the home of Vaughn Smith, the owner of Frontline, a news organization that seeks to influence TV journalists. Frontline is funded by George Soros' organization, Open Society Institute, and George Soros is intimately intertwined with the Rothschilds. George Soros has been a frequent business partner with James Goldsmith, father of Jemima Khan and cousin of the Rothschilds. The director of Soros Open Society Institute, Richard Katz, was director of N.M. Rothschild and Sons for 16 years. Other board members like Nils Taub also hold positions in Rothschild banks, etc. Assange was a speaker at Vaughn Smith's Frontline Trust. Most people seem to believe that current events just happen, that events in the news are chain reactions of accidents, and that people with money and power sit idly by, watching events unfold. However, the Rothschilds thrive on manipulating the markets by having insider information while propagating contrary misinformation. In this way, they make huge profits. Assange has already said that damaging information on one U.S. bank will be released. In this fragile recovery, the crisis could be pivotal. The Guardian and the New York Times have this information, so it is available to Rothschilds in order to short the bank before the information is released. WikiLeaks is an invaluable tool for the Rothschilds to manipulate the financial markets, the whole monetary system, the future of nations, and the public. The information, or misinformation, from WikiLeaks also serves the Rothschilds' aim to increase conflict among nations in order to further their goal of one world government. We are anonymous. We are legion. Hello world, we are anonymous. Since the last few videos we have learned a few things about the way things in this world are not what they seem to be. Why is this, you might ask? Why? It is political warfare. There are government organizations like the CIA, NSA, Feds who leaks material deliberately to the world to bring down a government or an individual or expose something that has been covered up. As we said, WikiLeaks is CIA, but it is also part of Project Pegasus, and if you are not aware of Project Pegasus, WikiLeaks is controlled by Government Ops United States of America, It can now be reported that French intelligence, European Interpol, Russian intelligence, and U.S. Defense Department intel have identified the Pegasus unit. It controls 70% of the U.S. CIA and the United States Department of Justice, as the operational and financial linchpin that coordinates worldwide terrorist networks and cells with an emphasis on Western Europe, the Middle East, as well as the United States. The Pegasus unit has also been fingered in the training of Chechenian rebels that have been linked to terrorist attacks against Orthodox churches, Jewish synagogues, and elementary schools inside the Russian Federation. It gets worse. The Pegasus unit has also been combining these Chechenian cells into assassination teams that are currently being funded by the U.S. State Department to assassinate pro-Russian resistance in the now Nazi paperclip U.S. government-occupied nation of Ukraine. Note this all ties into the nation of Yemen. The Pegasus unit, which operates in duality with the US NSA, specializes in conducting worldwide espionage and scripting worldwide financial and geopolitical events. Massive financial worldwide currency manipulation and scripted false flag terrorist attacks that benefit proprietary trading of crooked worldwide banks. The Pegasus unit also specializes in the use of algorithms and scalar technology, which attacks elements of the human brain, the medulla, with electromagnetic radiation waves that use power lines, Gwen towers for ELF, satellites, and cell phones as the weapons of attack. Tweet, October 21. The Obama administration should not have attempted to misuse its instruments of state to stop criticism of its ruling party candidates, referring to the drop of the Clinton Podesta and Soros emails. You only have to do one wrong thing to make the spy agency you are working for become suspicious of you. Might want to take note of the Clinton emails, the content, the countries they hurt, the political people they hurt. Certain powers wanted Clinton gone, they wanted Obama gone, they went through WikiLeaks, who is CIA, and Project Pegasus to do this. But some of that material was never meant to be published. Julian defied a lot of people. John Young of Cryptome has denounced WikiLeaks, to which he formerly belonged, as a CIA front. In a December 29, 2011 interview.
Been publishing information prohibited by governments. This includes classified and secret documents on U.S. soil since 1996. Now, the co-founder of that site joins me now to tell us more. John Young, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Now, as I said, Cryptome.org has been in the business of making government secrets public long before WikiLeaks was. Tell us a little bit about the history and philosophy of your website.
The site was set up principally to publish information about communication security, which is the fundamental technology for keeping secrets. And it grew out of my participation in a group called Cypherpunks, which was also a group where Julian Assange learned his skills. And so that this group was composed of very highly educated engineers, scientists, and technicians who were mostly working for corporations and government on the technology of communication security. And they knew that this was going to come into the private market as the Cold War wound down, and they wanted to get information out to the public about what was coming. So we set up this site to make that information available from people who had access to it but did not want to be identified as a source.
Greetings world, we are anonymous. It is with great concern that we find ourselves still associated in the eyes of the public with Julian Assange and what has become like WikiLeaks. We do not support nor do we endorse Julian Assange, Vladimir Putin, or Donald Trump. We reject fascism and all who promote it. WikiLeaks under Julian Assange is a front for several corrupt state actors like Russia and the Assad regime in Syria, which the majority of anonymous have always opposed. Some people didn't seem to notice that Assange's WikiLeaks party backed the right wing and visited Assad in 2012. We did. WikiLeaks under Julian Assange is celebrated by all we oppose. In 2010, WikiLeaks was helped by a lot of very good people who all left or were arrested long ago. Julian Assange has managed to drive out everyone good, who were of service to the people and a better world. He has used their efforts and the previous support from Anonymous to further an agenda in complete opposition to their and our beliefs. He and an army of bots promote Russia, Assad, WikiLeaks and Trump in the name of Anonymous and write off a humanitarian reputation that was not created by Assange or anyone currently with the organization. We have tried to bring the public as much information as possible during the recent US election and every election. We tried to expose Trump's very real links to child trafficking and mafia circles and had our work drowned out by an asinine story about spirit cooking pushed by Assange onto our hashtags. He used the megaphone we all built to promote a man who will normalize fascism and hate across the globe. He suppressed information in the Syria files about $2 billion in payments from Russia to Syria. He vilified Panama Papers for being biased against Russia, after stealing credit for their work. He jeered at Parisians under attack as he is now jeering at women and minorities in the US fearing for their safety. Julian Assange and his current band of sycophants and handlers have turned WikiLeaks into a symbol of fascism and disillusionment to those who worked hard and risked their very lives to create and protect it. They worked to discredit and silence all who opposed Julian Assange but supported the 2010 WikiLeaks. They scream asylum for Assange and Snowden, who are not in prison but ignore refugees and our anonymous comrades and other brave fighters actually in prison. Jeremy Hammond and Chianese Manning are frequently in solitary confinement, torture, and have their human rights taken from them constantly. They and others gave WikiLeaks their lives with the idea that it would help reveal the truth and spark steps towards justice. Julian Assange has taken every opportunity to destroy their work, smear their credibility, and rewrite a history where those who did the work do not exist. Only a cult hero named Julian Assange does. We reject tyrant coups, including the one Julian Assange has attempted to conduct over WikiLeaks and Anonymous. We reject Julian Assange and everything he stands for. We strongly discourage anyone from leaking to him, listening to him, or giving him money. Free Jeremy Hammond. Free Chelsea Manning. We are anonymous. We are everywhere. We are Legion.